Okay, so now we're going to touch on a few questions here, guys. So there's so many amazing things that you guys are doing in each of your businesses. Can you, for like everyone in the crowd, just kind of summarize what is the particular customer that you're looking for to go to your site, your business, and what can they get out of going there?
Yeah, for CoinList, it's a couple people. So it's on the issuer side, on the token issuer side, really high quality projects that will pass a deep vetting process and be able to be the products that we're providing services for, helping with compliance, helping with actually managing the sale, and then giving investors that are our clients an opportunity to invest. And then on the investor side, it's every investor out there, whether it's the retail investor all the way up to institutional investors, endowments, hedge funds, venture funds. We want everyone on the platform making sure they can get access to these deals that pass our investment committee.
Awesome. Go for it, Jason.
It's not going to be entirely dissimilar, but there are a couple of distinctions, I think, for Indiegogo. So certainly it's a two-sided marketplace where on the one hand we have issuers and on the other hand we have investors. For the issuers, we similarly are vetting our projects and looking for the highest quality offerings that are keen to take advantage of our regulatory capabilities, our registered broker-dealer, to do everything absolutely by the book. We're working as closely as we can directly with the SEC and with other working groups to affect the regulatory framework as best as we can and in the most honest and sincere way possible. So working with these high-quality offerings, a key part of this. On the investor side, similar. We have tens of millions of backers on Indiegogo and website visitors who have supported millions of different projects across just about every category. I think what's interesting about our platform is the notion that a token sale can sort of cross that chasm from being something that is really crypto-centric and speaks to an early adopting, enthusiastic crypto crowd to making it something that is really mainstream. And we see our duty as being one of educating the masses and really making this an accessible, democratized fundraising strategy for all to participate in.
Awesome. How many businesses have been through Indiegogo now?
We've had 1 million fundraising campaigns on platform in the last 10 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Andrii, over to you as well.
Sorry, I've missed the question.
So in terms of like the demographic of who customers would benefit from your platform and your business most, who would that be, for anyone in the crowd?
So we are working primarily with the companies who facilitate a switch of the existing business models to blockchain. We help them to design, to check if the blockchain is applicable for their business model at all or not, and if it's applicable, we actively participate in the brainstorming sessions about how exactly it should be applied, what it makes sense to move to the blockchain and what doesn't, and then we walking them through the ICO process. So we also have a number of solutions for ICOs, including crowdfunding platform.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. So just I want a quick raise in the crowd. Who's actually going for an ICO again? Put your hand up. Okay, great. So there's a number of people out there. So you see so many businesses that come through your platform, so many that you speak to day in, day out. What are some of the key parts of an ICO that you need to nail, and what's best practices?
I'm a broken record here on the regulatory side, but making sure you're being thoughtful about how the deal is structured. It's just a non-starter for really any of our platforms if you're not structuring it in a way that's compliant. So starting with that, but then from there, we're looking at the team. Do they have a history of shipping product? Have you built real technology that's meaningful? Is there a real use case for this token? Does the token economic model make sense? Do the sale economics make sense? Do you actually have a path towards building this into a successful business? And understanding all of those components start to finish is crucial. But non-starter on the regulatory side, and then from there, it's a matter of figuring out which of these projects are really interesting and how you're going to be successful in the long run.
Yeah, I think we agree with a lot of that. We often discuss internally at Indiegogo that it seems like this first wave of token sale activities really resembles Web 1.0, where a bunch of unsavvy money flew into all kinds of businesses that amounted to nothing more than a piece of paper and an enthusiastic team, and sometimes without even that much enthusiasm. And that didn't go terribly well. And what happened as a result of that is we arrived at this new place where there started to be an expectation on the part of investors that there was already going to be a little more value demonstrated, whether that is demonstrating product market fit, ability to build or protect interesting IP or technology, et cetera. So I would just pivot off of that point and say, for us, we certainly are looking for incredibly strong teams. We are certainly looking to make sure all of the compliance boxes are checked. But it's really key for us to make sure that we're not just looking at this as a fundraising exercise for us, that we can participate in the sale of. We'd like to make sure that this has a really strong chance of building on its promises and fulfilling on whatever it is that we are engaging our backer community or our investor community into participating. The last thing I would also add, and I know Andy and I share this sentiment, is lawyers, lawyers, lawyers. We are sincerely astonished sometimes at the kind of counsel that is given to some of the token sellers with whom we are exploring opportunities. And these are, good people from good firms, et cetera, but the range of different types of guidance and the flavor of that guidance, it is all over the map. And this is a really, really tricky time right now, as everybody I think is well aware, from a regulatory and legal standpoint in conducting these token sales. So I think for us, it's, we really encourage anybody who's looking at doing this to vet counsel aggressively and to really choose very, very carefully these legal Sherpas that are going to be guiding them along the way.
Want to comment as well?
Okay, so the most important thing that companies that is considering doing an ICO should think about and make sure they understand it is that most of the investors in utility tokens believe that want to believe that they're investing in the next Ethereum. So their expectations are similar. You should have a really clear understanding of why your token is the next Ethereum and how exactly you will make it increase its value so much. And also it's really important to understand all the risks and consequences of what is going to happen if you don't deliver.
Absolutely. It seems the same sort of route of what you go for any startup fundraising at all. It's all about the team, legal team. Are you actually going to do what you say you're going to do? It's not a big hype around, let's do an ICO, but you actually have to build something at the end of the day as well. And in what ways can these platforms that you guys have and the businesses, how is that opening it up for kind of people from all areas globally? So from Sydney, where it's not such a big thing as much as it is here, but how is it opening it up even more on a global scale?
I think a big part of that is changing the expectation for how fundraising is conducted. So traditionally for startups, fundraising is conducted from a very small set of parties, and you need to have a relationship to the founders in order to get into the round. But now there's this world where ICOs are generally open at some level to people that fulfill whatever requirements you need to fulfill from a regulatory perspective, but you can be anywhere in the world and invest in those sales. And what's powerful about that concept is it now allows for this community to get built as part of the fundraising process. And when we look at that at CoinList, we make sure that our compliance process allows for people from all over the world and doesn't block people from countries because we don't have the capability to process them. We need to make sure that we can accept everyone on the platform. So it really is this global phenomenon that I think is so powerful. You look at Indiegogo's 232 countries that they have backers from. That every single one of those countries can invest in ICOs, and that concept is what will really drive this industry forward. That these tokens can be issued from anywhere in the world. A smart developer anywhere can build them, as opposed to needing to be in Silicon Valley or New York City or London or Berlin. But even beyond that, their backers can be from all over the world too.
We're on the one hand, when it comes to geography, we're so optimistic to see the level of global engagement in this type of fundraising. And to Andy's point, this is something that has brought everybody together, that is accessible and has the potential to continue being so. So that's amazing. And similarly to CoinList, Indiegogo is always adamant about taking advantage of the regulatory frameworks that will allow us to maximize the number of folks and the range of folks and the types of people who can participate fundraising exercises. That being said, I do think that you kind of can't talk about anything in token sales without coming back to regulatory. I think right now on the subject of geography, we're seeing that in this sort of place that we're at with regulatory ambiguity, there are all kinds of geographic consequences. Certain token sales are now moving out of the US or forbidding US investors from participating, and havens are starting to pop up. I don't think it's entirely clear what happens. And I think anybody who suggests that they know exactly where the chips are going to fall is probably being a little disingenuous. But I do think that all of this is going to hang heavily on regulatory. And my sense, personally, is that the US regulatory framework that comes is going to be seen as something of guidance for perhaps not all countries out there, but certainly for a number of other countries out there. So we're certainly hopeful that this will be made, regulatory will be arrived at in a way that protects investors fully and in a healthy way, but allows this type of global engagement to continue.
Yeah, I think so too. And like some of the conversations I've been having over the past kind of couple of days is around how kind of early stage areas like Australia can start to replicate some of the legalities around like what you're bringing in here and start to really like drive that forward, which is really, really interesting. So last kind of like couple of questions that I want to ask. So in terms of, I've written so many notes here because it was so interesting, but who shouldn't be going for an ICO? Because there's so many people that want to do it here, but actually there's a number that shouldn't. So yeah, what's your advice on that?
If we're talking about tokens that are meant to be used on a platform, so setting aside the idea of a securities token that represents equity, which I think is really interesting, if we're just talking about ones that are intended to be used for some purpose on some sort of platform, call it a protocol token or an app token, I actually think there's very few companies that should do them. And the core reason there is that, in my eyes, there needs to be a compelling reason to build a distributed network, to use a blockchain to accomplish that need. If your product could be just as well served by having a centralized database, then I would argue there's not a good purpose to do an ICO there. And CoinList, when we think about that, it's really one of the criteria we look at. Is there a compelling reason for this token to exist? And if there is, and there are many, and that's the reason we're all here at Token Fest, then amazing, you should go and do an ICO and get this thing off the ground. But thinking critically about that in the first place, about how the token economics work and how the existence of the token can be justified, is a core piece of that brainstorming process you need to have before you actually get to an ICO.
Andrii, what about you?
I think every company blockchain will become the only way to transfer securities in pretty near future. There will be multiple types of fundraisings happening on the blockchain. Not all of them will be called ICOs, but every fundraising will include issuance of shares or other types of financial instruments on the blockchain. So ultimately, every company it won't be called ICO.
Okay, we've got 20 seconds. Last tip for anyone in the crowd that's going through this round at the moment. You've got like 5 seconds.
Last tip?
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Right back to what Jason said earlier. Lawyers, talk to them, make sure they're doing a good job and good work.
I would say we are all very, very lucky to be alive right now. The blockchain is one of the most important technological developments that we will see in our lifetime, if not the most. Take advantage of this. Don't spin your cycles on a get-rich-quick exercise. Take advantage. You are alive at a very, very exciting time. If you don't have the idea, find people that do, gravitate to smart people, join meetups, read as much as you can. There are crazy, exciting ideas out there, and one or more of them is waiting for you to be involved with it. Find it.
My advice would be to the companies who are planning an ICO, please stop launching like new blockchains. We got enough. They are not at the limit of their capacity yet. I mean, Ethereum is pretty closed, but there is a long roadmap of the features that needs to be developed. If you really want to help with the blockchain development,
more to come. There's so much to come. There's
yep.
only businesses
Please
are open.
join the developers of some of the existing blockchains, but better think about your business, market strategy, and so on. Blockchain, ICO is just a way to raise money. You don't need to have your own blockchain.
Thanks so much, guys. So interesting. Big round of applause for everyone.
Thank you.